Hi everyone, my name is Shilla and I'm from the University of Groningen and I'll be presenting about my paper which talks about utilizing ethical responsibility CSR in the fast fashion industry in Indonesia. So here is the overview of the presentation. A quick and brief introduction about the paper itself. So, in the fast fashion industry, clothing waste has become a big environmental problem. And according to Anim and Kujo, nowadays consumers are concerned about the company's social responsibility and their environmental impact. So, that's why every company should have their own CSR in order to succeed. And according to Abdullah and Budiman, businesses' corporate social responsibility affects consumers' purchase intention. And in my paper, two practices of ethical responsibility CSR, which are implementation of refashioning and provision of living wage, will be used as the independent variable to test the effect on purchase intention as the dependent variable. And the research objective is to know which CSR ethical responsibility practices have a higher effect on Indonesia's consumers' purchase intention in the fast fashion industries from developed countries. And therefore, the research question is which ethical sustainable responsibility practice has the higher effect on consumer purchase intention in the Indonesian market within the fast fashion industry from a developed country. So here's the literature review. So the first one is about corporate social responsibility. So CSR is where companies voluntarily include social and environmental factors in their business operations. And the framework that I use is the Carroll's Pyramid, which consists of economic, legal, ethical, and philanthropic responsibilities. And for the second one is ethical responsibility. So it is the actions and behaviors that are expected by the community and not written in law. And it consists of standards and norms. And the third one is regarding the consumer purchase intention. So according to Patrick et al., consumers do not mind paying more for products manufactured in socially, environmentally, and morally responsible ways. And Fadati et al. Also mentioned that there is a positive direct impact between CSR and purchasing behavior. And lastly, Abdullah and Budiman's research in 2019 finds that a company's CSR affects consumers' purchase intention. And the fourth one is implementation of refashioning in clothing waste management. So, refashioning is the process that reworks fashion clothing and returns the item to the clothing stream, effectively creating a new loop and postponing its grave ending. So, in Indonesia, the fashion waste is 2.3 million tons, according to CIPSN in 2021. And Indonesians do realize that sustainable fashion is the solution to issues caused by the fast fashion industry. And the next one is living wage for employees. So living wage is voluntary, and employers are not required to give a living wage to their workers. And in Indonesia, there is no law that requires a company to give a living wage to its employees. And lastly is the comparison of both independent variables. So according to Wijaya and Paramita, Indonesians are aware of the damage that is caused by a fast fashion industry and the concept of sustainable fashion. And Indonesians' awareness of providing a living wage to employees is not really high since they focus more on the minimum wage. So here is the conceptual model. So from the literature review, I came up with three different hypotheses. And in this slide, there is also the conceptual model that I made. So the first hypothesis is fashion companies that implement refashioning and clothing waste management have a positive impact on consumer purchase intention. And the second hypothesis is fashion companies that provide a living wage to their workers, which exceed the minimum wage requirements, have a positive impact on consumer purchase intention. And the third hypothesis is the implementation of refashioning and clothing waste management has a higher effect on consumer purchase intention than ensuring living wage for the employees. Okay, so this is the methodology. So for the research design itself, I use a quantitative approach. And for the data collection, I use the primary data. So I conducted a survey questionnaire to Indonesians aged 18 and above. And in the questionnaire itself, there will be two sections. So the first section is regarding the demographic questions like age, gender, purchasing behavior, etc. And in the second section, they will get a randomized scenario, and there are two randomized scenarios of the independent variables. So some of the participants received the first independent variable scenario, or refashioning, while others receive the second independent variable scenario, which is the provision of living wage. And both scenarios discuss a fast fashion company from a developed country that had planned to expand to Indonesia using CSR initiative. So both of the scenarios have the same questions. And for the sampling itself, I use random sampling techniques, and I collected 113 number of samples. And the procedures can be seen in the slide. So the first one, there's a consent, and then there's demographic questions, and then there are two randomized scenarios, and there's also the questions itself. And for the data analysis itself, to test the first hypothesis, I use the regression analysis. And for the second hypothesis, I also use the regression analysis. And for the third hypothesis, I use the independent sample t-test. So here is the result and discussion from the experiment that I conducted. So from the sample itself, the 74% of the sample is female and 39% of the sample is male. And the result is reliable since the ground box alpha is 0.774. So the first hypothesis is supported. So from the research, implementation of refashioning strategy indicates 33% increase in consumer purchase intention, and this all in line with statement from Min Kongku and Yunus, which states that sustainability efforts of fashion companies have a positive impact on consumer purchase intention. And this also in line with prior research from Wijaya and Paramita in 2021, which states that Indonesians' awareness on sustainability has a positive impact on consumer purchase intention. And in conclusion, fashion companies that implement refashioning in clothing waste management have a positive impact on consumer purchase intention. And for the second hypothesis is not supported. So fashion companies that gives a living wage to employees has no impact on consumer purchase intention. And it has no impact because Indonesians' awareness of providing a living wage to employees is not high, since they focus more on legal minimum wages. And for the third hypothesis, the hypothesis is also not supported. So, according to the result of the research conducted by me, there is no distinct difference in scores for a company that implements a refashioning strategy with a mean of 3.82 and a company that provides living wage with a mean of 3.81 to the employees. And the hypothesis is rejected because Indonesian consumers can compare between refashioning and living wage because of lack of awareness of the living wage. So here are the implications and the limitation of my paper. So for the implication itself, Indonesian are already aware of the damage that is caused by a fast fashion industry, as stated by Wijaya and Paramita in 2021. And then consumers are willing to purchase products from socially and environmentally responsible companies, as stated by Pickett and Baker and also Ozaki. And a fast fashion company from a developed country that wants to be successful in Indonesia should consider implementing a refashioning strategy because it leads to a high purchase intention, as the research that I conducted stated. And for the limitations itself, there are three limitations. So the first one is there were only 113 samples taken from the Indonesian customers in different age groups. So the sample is very small. And the second one is the number of respondent in each scenario is not the same. So the distribution is not equal. And the third one is by using the randomized scenario, as I use in my experiment, it does not allow me to control characteristics in each group. And for the future research, in the future research, more variables can be included in the experiment, such as gender, for instance. And it is also advisable to talk about consumer behavior or attitude and link the consumer behavior or attitude to the research with the CSR ethical responsibility and consumer purchase intention. In conclusion, there are four main conclusions that I can conclude from my paper. So the first one is implementing a refashioning strategy has a positive impact on Indonesian consumer purchase intention. And the second one is a company that provides a living wage to workers does not have a positive impact on purchase intention, because in Indonesia itself, the awareness regarding the living wage is not high, since they focus more on the minimum wage. And the third one is there is no distinct difference on purchase intention between a company that implements refreshing strategy and a company that provides living wage, even though the score is not really high, so 3.82 and 3.81. That means that there is no distinct difference between companies that implement both of the strategies. And lastly, a fast fashion company from a developed country that wants to expand to Indonesia should implement a sustainability strategy in order to achieve a high purchase intention. So, thank you for watching my presentation, and thank you for listening to my presentation. And see you next time.